Hey guys, Andrew Henderson, Nomad Capitalist, hanging out in one of my favorite places, Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Want to talk specifically about second passports and why I believe that there's a lack of information and a lack of depth in the information that's out there about evaluating which citizenship is best. And I want to talk specifically about why I think a lot of the information that's out there doesn't tell the full story when it comes to evaluating what a citizenship is worth or what a passport is worth. Now, obviously, there is a distinction, and this is oftentimes overlooked and the line is blurred in the media. A citizenship is something that you have by virtue of being a citizen of a country, and you can obtain citizenship in another country. A passport is a travel document that you get as one of the privileges of being a citizen of another country. And so, yes, we call it second passport, we call it second citizenship. For what we talk about at Nomad Capitalist, it's roughly the same, but do understand that to have a passport, you need to be a citizen, and vice versa. And obviously, the value of a citizenship may be a little bit different than the value of a passport, and so that's what I want to explain today. Every year, one of a number of different people in the industry, in the passport sales industry, the guys who sell the big expensive passports, they come out with an index and they say, hey, here are the best passports in the world. And the media runs with this and they say, oh yeah, Germany is the best passport to have because you can go to, I think it's 177 countries with the German passport. And that gets run with in the media and people go out and say, oh, Germany is the best citizenship to have. I think that's a little bit misleading, and let me tell you why. All these indices that come out every year, they say, hey, let's rank countries by number of visa-free travel options, i.e. Germany's number one. And then there are 5 countries tied at number 2 because they can go to 1 country less. And then there are 4 countries tied at number 3 because they can go to 2 countries less. And it becomes a little silly where you've got, 25 different countries in the world tied for the top 8 or 9 different spots, basically able to go to the same countries. When you compare the European Union, Canada, the US, Australia, Singapore, there's not a lot of difference in where they can go. It's minor details. And if you're Polish, you're not that much worse off than Swedish. If you're a Canadian, how different really is that from German? Are you really going to suffer any difference? And my suggestion is that looking beyond, when you're looking at getting a passport, especially when you're looking at getting a second passport, which is obviously what these companies help people do, and is what we talk about here at Nomad Capitalist, looking at more than just where you can go with the passport for visa-free travel, I think is very important when it comes to figuring out which citizenship is best for you, especially when it comes to a second citizenship. So I'll give you an example. A lot of people come to me, they're US citizens, they say, Andrew, I don't plan on renouncing my US passport, but I'd like a backup, I'd like a plan B. Well, for that person, the number of visa-free countries probably doesn't matter because other than being able to go to Brazil or Russia, there's not much better you can do than a US passport. That said, that doesn't mean that the US citizenship is the best citizenship out there because being a U.S. citizen means that you have to pay tax on your worldwide income. You've got to file FBARs. You're subject to the FCPA and other regulations on U.S. citizens abroad. There's all kinds of, banks won't take you in some cases. Being a U.S. citizen isn't all it's cracked up to be. Quite frankly, I'd much rather be a citizen of a country with a B-plus passport without all those restrictions than a citizen of the United States, which has an A passport but comes with a lot of baggage. If you're looking to get a second passport, the most important thing, if you're already a US or Canadian or Australian citizen, isn't where you can go, but what else does that passport have to offer? And so what I look at when I'm considering different passports is not only where can I go with it, but where can I go with it in relation to passports that I already have? So if you're a US citizen, being able to have a passport that also gets you into the European Union may not be that important. You may want to add other countries you don't have, i.e. Brazil. Like I said, I'm going to Brazil this year, and I won't have to bother with getting a visa because I won't be using my US passport to go. So I think that's important. But also important is the issue of, does a second passport allow you to have dual citizenship? I had a guy who worked for me who was Austrian, but he was entitled to get Polish citizenship, and he was going to live in a place where he could get another citizenship. But Austrian didn't allow dual. So the question was, would you rather be Polish and something else or just Austrian? And my estimation is you always want to have more than one if you can. So in my mind, even though Lithuania may be a very high-ranking citizenship, or Singapore may be a very high-ranking citizenship, the fact that they don't allow dual citizenship brings it down a peg in my opinion. And so even though those countries have excellent visa-free travel, I'd much rather have a slightly lesser quality passport than I would have theirs, because I want the ability to be dual. Obviously, again, the U.S., you may encounter some problems if you go somewhere near American. You may run into challenges. There may be some countries, small number, but a few, that don't want to give you visas, or that want to give you a hard time because you're an American, that might not give you a hard time if you were, from Romania. Again, Romania not as good of a passport, and in the mere issue of visa-free travel, but nobody's going and getting into fights with the Romanians. And lastly is the issue of freedom. You have passports that are halfway decent, but that have an increasingly shrinking number of freedoms. People in South Africa have told me that. Even though their passport is halfway decent, it's not that great, but even though their passport's not terrible, they feel like they have fewer and fewer freedoms by virtue of being South Africans. So I guess what I'm saying in summary is there are a lot of different factors. And so what we've decided to do at Nomad Capitalist, and what we'll be putting out very shortly, is what I call the Nomad Passport Index, where we've gone through and looked at 5 different factors, including visa-free travel, including the obligation to file taxes, whether you live there, whether you live overseas, etc. The ability to have dual citizenship, the perception of the country, and the freedom. So you've got 5 different factors. I believe that all the different indices that talk about just travel are misguided. Again, those indices are largely made for Chinese and Arab and Russian investors who want high-ticket second passports because they currently can't get into the European Union or the US or Canada, and they're looking for that better travel. The Nomad Capitalist approach is, if you want a second passport, how is that second passport serving you as part of your portfolio? And so that's why we're creating this index where we're taking into account 5 different weighted factors. Travel being the most important, tax-paying obligations being next, and then the other 3 kind of being equal. Because the perception of your country does matter. An Israeli passport's a great passport, but if you can't get into 12 different countries. There are other countries that may give you a hard time. If you're ever flying on a plane and there's a problem, I'd rather be Slovenian than American or Israeli, just keeping it real. So there are so many different factors that I think go into figuring out which passport is best that merely visa-free travel doesn't take into account. So you can find details, if you're watching on YouTube, you can find details on the Nomad Passport Index in the area below the video. We are going to be putting this out very soon, and I think it's going to be a very interesting way to track which passport is the best. The United States passport on my index will not be the best. I don't think that the German passport will be the best. I think that you're going to finally see a hard look at all the different factors that go into a passport, not just travel, and be able to figure out which one is best for you. These are the factors that I look at when I'm looking at different citizenships and how valuable they are. And I think that these are the factors that you should look at too when you're trying to get your second passport. So check out the details in the box below.